President. Joining us now to break down those numbers is Pulse Asia President Ronald Holmes. Ronnie, great to have you with us. Let's take a look at the numbers first of President Bongbong Marcos. How significant is this drop in his rating from 80% to 65% in only, more than a year in office?
Yeah, it's pretty significant. From survey to survey, the margin of error to make a change significant is plus or minus 6 points. In this case, this is a 15-point drop, so that's really quite significant a drop on the part of the approval rating of the Bongbong Marcos.
All right, if you take a look at what really impacted his numbers, it is rising prices, not only of rice, sugar, eggs, basic commodities. Is this an indication, Ronnie, that he should just relinquish his post as Agriculture Secretary and focus on what he was voted into office for, which is the presidency?
Well, that might be part of it, but when he assumed the position of secretary concurrently, the expectation really is that he'll do much more of the monitoring in terms of the agriculture department with respect, let's say, to the supply of rice and the price of rice for that matter. But it seems, well, it's correct. The president has many more responsibilities. Taking on another portfolio would deflect attention away from the more particular responsibility. So I think that would be a wise advice to be given to the president. No?
Yeah, because nothing seems to have gone right so far in his more than a year as agricultural chief. But of course, he's made more than a dozen foreign trips, Ronnie, in over a year into his presidency, more than any other president in the history of this country. And he basically promotes that he has been able to gather tens of billions of dollars in pledges. Why hasn't this impacted more positively in his ratings?
Well, those pledges are still pledges, no? Additionally, what we can say basically is the president also made a promise when he assumed the position that he'll bring down the price of rice to 20 pesos. But if you look at the developments prior to the survey, the ceiling in terms of prices that was imposed by the government itself is double that amount. So making a promise that you will reduce rice to about half of the price ceiling and then being unable to fulfill that promise will definitely have more people, might lead to more people withdrawing the appreciation of the president's performance.
All right. This survey was done, Ronnie, between September 10 to 14, 2023. What are the trends showing? Could the numbers stabilize for the president, or could we see a further fall?
Well, it depends largely on what will happen in the next 3 months. No? For example, you expect that prices will continue to increase. No? We're going into the Christmas season, and normally during this time, you do have a tendency for many of the basic commodities to increase in terms of price, given the festivities and the supply. We also have a problem of supply, no? More specifically in terms of rice. Unless government starts importing or the harvest is bountiful, then the price of rice might be maintained at the level that it is right now, beyond the reach of ordinary Filipinos in those classes D and E. So we cannot say what will happen unless really there are things that the government should be able to do in order to stabilize at least the prices of basic commodities, more specifically the staple, rice for this matter.
And it looks like the prices of these basic commodities will not drop anytime soon. All right, let's take a look at Vice President Sara Duterte, Ronnie. Why the double-digit fall in her ratings? Is it because of her role as Vice President or Education Secretary impacting her popularity?
It's hard to determine essentially what specifically drove it, whether it's an assessment of her performance as Education Secretary or Vice President. What we do see, Rico, in this survey is that all the top officials saw significant decline in terms of their approval. to a greater extent, there's a shift from approval to indecision. So it somehow it's perplexing, that the entire government, all the leaders of the three branches of government are being held accountable. More specifically, even the Chief Justice seems to be
Yes.
held accountable for whatever has been happening, and the Chief Justice is far from really directly involved in addressing many of the issues that
Yeah.
confront the material issues that confront the Filipinos.
And Ronnie, it's not only the Supreme Court Justice Alexander Hesmundo, but also the Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri and House Speaker Martin Romualdez, who also have gotten lower ratings. Is this because they're aligned with the president?
That one might be explained because it's quite clear that both Speaker Romualdez and Senate President Subiri are aligned with the president, and in this regard, a decline in terms of appreciation of the work of the president may also result to a decline in terms of appreciation of the work of, let's say, the vice president, the Senate president, and the Speaker of the House, who are known to be allies of the president.
All right, okay. The fiasco also of the confidential funds has impacted Sara Duterte's popularity. But taking a look at the sampling, the geographic areas, and socio-economic classes, Ronnie, are these the same people who voted for President Bongbong Marcos and Vice President Sara Duterte in the 2022 national elections? Are they the ones becoming disenchanted with their leadership?
Well, essentially, since the decline is across all the subnational areas and socioeconomic classes, so you do see a part of those who may have supported and voted for the president and the vice president withdrawing their approval or trust towards the two. But Rico, let me just point out also, no, when we did the survey, this was before the issue on the confidential funds
Yes.
became quite resonant. No? So the investigation, the deliberation in the House was not directed completely at the Vice President yet when we did the survey. We'll be able to measure the impact of that probably in the next survey.
All right. Everyone awaits the next survey of Pulse Asia. Ronnie Holmes, thank you so much for joining us and
Thank you very
breaking
much,
down the
Rico.
numbers.